the Los Angeles sun beat down on the asphalt, turning the city into a shimmering mirage. I was in town for a 3-day work conference, staying at a sleek, modern hotel in the heart of downtown. The room was comfortable, the view spectacular, and the staff, for the most part, friendly. But there was something about this place, a subtle unease that clung to the air like the scent of chlorine from the pool downstairs. The first night passed without incident. I slept soundly, lulled by the city's distant hum. It was the second morning that the unsettling feeling began. I woke to a sound, a faint creak, like someone trying the handle of my door. I sat up, heart pounding, but there was nothing. The hallway was empty, the silence thick and oppressive. I dismissed it as a faulty lock or a trick of my sleep-addled mind. That night, the unease returned. I was working late, the city lights painting the window in a kaleidoscope of colors. A sudden, sharp rapping on the door startled me. I jumped up, adrenaline surging. "Room service?" I called out, my voice shaky. Silence. I cautiously opened the door, peering into the hallway. It was empty. But then, I saw him. A man, tall and thin, with a face obscured by the shadows. He was dressed in a dark uniform, a name tag barely visible on his chest. He was standing at the end of the hallway, staring at me. "Room service?" I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer. He just stood there, his eyes fixed on me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about him felt wrong, off-kilter. His movements were jerky, almost robotic. "Are you here for room service?" I repeated, my voice gaining a little more confidence. He still didn't answer. He just continued to stare at me, his eyes unblinking. I felt a sudden urge to close the door, to shut him out. "I'm not ordering anything," I said, my voice firm. "Please leave." He didn't move. He just stood there, his eyes boring into me. I slammed the door shut, the sound echoing through the hallway. I leaned against the door, my heart hammering in my chest. I could feel his gaze on me, even through the wood. I called down to the front desk, reporting the incident. The receptionist, a young woman with a bored expression, assured me it was probably just a mistake. "Maybe he was looking for another room," she said, her voice flat. I wasn't convinced. I spent the rest of the night with the lights on, every creak and groan of the building sending shivers down my spine. The third night, the same sound woke me. The faint creak of a door handle being turned. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I could hear the sound again, closer this time, almost at my door. I jumped out of bed, my heart pounding in my ears. I ran to the door, my hand shaking as I reached for the handle. I peered through the peephole. There he was, the man from the night before. He was standing right outside my door, his face still obscured by the shadows. He was staring at me. I screamed, a primal, desperate cry that echoed through the hallway. I stumbled back, my hand reaching for the phone. I dialed the front desk, my voice trembling. "There's a man outside my door." I cried, my voice barely audible. "He's trying to get in." The receptionist's voice was calm, almost dismissive. "Sir, there's no one outside your door. You must be mistaken." I could hear the man's muffled laughter coming from the other side of the door. I slammed the phone down, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped, alone in my room, with a malevolent presence outside my door. I heard the sound of the door handle being turned again. I backed away, my eyes wide with terror. I didn't know what to do, where to go. I was trapped, alone, and terrified. Then, the sound stopped. The silence was deafening. I stood there, frozen, my breath catching in my throat. I could feel his gaze on me, even though I couldn't see him. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what he wanted. But I knew one thing, I had to get out of there. I grabbed my bag and ran to the door, flinging it open and sprinting down the hallway. I didn't stop running until I reached the lobby, the cool air of the night a welcome relief. I checked out of the hotel that morning, leaving behind the unsettling feeling that clung to the place like a bad dream. I never went back. To this day, I don't know who the man was or what he wanted. But I know one thing: I'll never forget the chilling feeling of being watched, the fear that gripped me in that hotel room, and the unsettling truth that sometimes, the most terrifying things are the ones we can't see. The air in the motel room was thick with the scent of stale cigarettes and disinfectant, a potent cocktail that clung to the threadbare carpet and the chipped paint on the walls. It was a far cry from the luxurious hotels I was used to, but it was cheap, and I was tired. After a grueling week of back-to-back meetings, I just wanted to collapse into bed and forget about everything. I'd driven all night from North Carolina, determined to reach my parents' place in Colorado before nightfall. The drive had been long and lonely, punctuated only by the occasional truck stop and the hum of the engine. I'd filled the tank at the last gas station before the motel, a decision I'd come to regret. The motel itself was a faded relic of a bygone era, its neon sign flickering erratically like a dying star. The room was small and cramped, the furniture worn and dusty. But I was too exhausted to care. I threw my bags on the bed, stripped down, and stepped into the shower. The water was lukewarm and the pressure weak, but it was enough to wash away the grime of the road. As I lay in bed, the exhaustion finally catching up with me, I heard it. A whisper, faint and barely audible, but distinct. "Sophia." My eyes flew open. The room was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamp outside the window. I sat up, heart pounding, listening intently. "Sophia," the whisper came again, closer this time, as if the voice were right beside me. I strained my ears, but there was nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator in the hallway and the distant rumble of traffic. I lay back down, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination, a trick of my tired mind. But the whisper lingered, a chilling echo in the silence. I couldn't sleep. Every time I drifted off, the whisper would return, pulling me back to the edge of consciousness. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with 1,000 possibilities. Was it a prank? A ghost? Or something else entirely? Morning arrived, bringing with it a sliver of sunlight that pierced through the gap in the curtains. I stumbled out of bed, feeling drained and disoriented. As I reached for my phone, I noticed something was wrong. The window was open, the glass shattered, shards scattered across the floor. Panic surged through me. Someone had been in my room. But who? And why? I rushed to the car, my heart pounding in my chest. The driver's side window was also smashed, the glass glittering in the morning sun. I ran my hand over the jagged edges, feeling a sharp pain. Then I saw it. A single word, scrawled in red marker on the windshield: Sophia. The name echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder of the whisper in the night. It was a name I hadn't heard in years, a name that belonged to a past I'd tried to bury. Who knew my name? Who knew about Sophia? And what did they want? The motel manager, a gruff man with a perpetual frown, shrugged when I reported the break-in. "Happens all the time," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "This place is a magnet for trouble." He offered no help, no sympathy. He just pointed me towards the nearest police station and went back to his desk, his gaze fixed on the flickering neon sign outside. As I drove away, the motel fading into the distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The whisper, the broken window, the name scrawled on the windshield, it was all too much to be a coincidence. I was no longer just a weary traveler. I was a target, a pawn in a game I didn't understand. And the only clue I had was a name, a whisper in the darkness, a name that haunted my dreams. This was 8 years ago. I received a call from my best friend Heather that would change my life forever. She excitedly told me that she was getting married and wanted me to be there to celebrate with her. Heather had moved to Texas 2 years prior for a job opportunity and had found success and love in the Lone Star State. I was thrilled for Heather, but there was one problem: my sister. My sister, who shall remain nameless, had a crippling fear of flying. She would rather face her worst fear than step foot on a plane. This posed a dilemma for me as I lived in Wisconsin and Heather's wedding was in Texas. After much deliberation and a heated argument, my sister and I finally came to a decision to drive to Texas for the wedding. We planned to leave early in the morning to make it in time for the ceremony. However, as luck would have it, things didn't go according to plan. Various unforeseen circumstances delayed our departure, and we found ourselves leaving home in the afternoon. As the sun began to set, we came across a quaint motel where we decided to spend the night before continuing our journey in the morning. Upon checking into the motel, we quickly realized that there was no running water in our room. Frustrated, I called the front desk to report the issue and request someone to come and fix it. A maintenance person was promptly sent to our room to address the problem. As my sister and I waited in the room, we heard a knock on the door. Assuming it was the maintenance person, my sister opened the door without hesitation. However, to our horror, it wasn't the maintenance person standing at the door. It was a man with sinister intentions. Before we could react, the man lunged towards my sister, his intentions clear. I could hear my sister's piercing screams echoing through the room as I rushed to her aid. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I didn't think twice before throwing my body between them, shielding my sister from harm. In that moment, everything seemed to happen in slow motion. I could feel the weight of my actions as I landed a punch on the man's face, causing him to stumble back in shock. My sister clung to me, her eyes wide with fear and gratitude. The man, realizing that his attempt had been thwarted, tried to escape. But I wasn't about to let him get away that easily. With a surge of determination, I chased after him, determined to make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. After a brief struggle, I managed to subdue the man until the authorities arrived. It was later revealed that he had a history of similar offenses and had been preying on unsuspecting victims for years. As the chaos settled and the night wore on, my sister and I sat together in silence, processing the events that had just transpired. In that moment, I realized just how much my sister meant to me and how far I would go to protect her. The following morning, we continued our journey to Texas, the weight of the previous night's events still heavy on our minds. Despite the harrowing experience, we made it to Heather's wedding and celebrated her love and happiness, grateful for each other's presence and the bond that held us together through thick and thin.